why should you care about Brownson? And I think that reduces to one question, I think. What is America's actual Constitution? Brownson confronts something rather dramatic. He confronts the Civil War. He comes to grips with this tragedy. In his book, published in 1865, The American Republic, which he says is his most mature work of political reflection. So in The American Republic, he confronts what he says is the real meaning of our Constitution. And he comes to an interesting conclusion, I think, if you think about the Civil War. He says the Republic came apart because those statesmen at the time, and for many decades preceding the Civil War, didn't understand the true nature of our Constitution. They had reduced it to, he says, starting in 1825, to pure democracy. That is pure majoritarianism, trying to stand on top of each other to get power and then to inflict pain on your opponents. That had become, he said, the received wisdom. He also says it had been reduced to individual rights alone and not the full Republican dimension of what we had received from the founding and from our history. And he also articulates these ideas, not necessarily in Aristotelian language or Thomistic language, but it's hard for me to think about Brownson as someone, and as, when Brownson kind of leaves the left in 1840, becomes a convert to Roman Catholicism in 1844, that's when he begins his education over again. And one of the first books he says he reads is Aristotle's Politics. And he's also very well versed in Aquinas. The common law is a huge part of his learning as well. He says that we're going to think about American constitutionalism. We've also got to think about these great contraries that are within the constitutional order. So we've got tremendous national power, yet the power of the states. We've got to synthesize that and think through that. We've got a republic about individual rights, but also the just authority of the government. We need to think about that. We've got separation of powers. What's the full truth there? We've got social contract. This is also, he says, a problem, not that he rejects the Declaration, but understanding the Declaration in pure modern social contract terms, he thinks is deeply problematic. Sort of like Alexis de Tocqueville in that regard. So he wants to put these things together. And in putting those together, he says, how can we become a constitutional people again? And he has really two foundational ideas in that regard. And one of those is, he calls it the providential constitution or the unwritten constitution. And then also another idea, territorial democracy. And I thought I might just walk through those and then sort of ask the question, because he says this is the way back to the founders' constitution. This is what we have to recover, this understanding. You can have a written constitution, and we do, but it ultimately has to be felt and lived by the people in terms that are unwritten.